This is Ashley. Do you want to introduce yourself again for everybody?
Sure. So I am a spiritual awakening coach, and that applies not towards just your beginning spiritual awakenings, but the many that seem to follow. I think Layne and I are probably on our, fourth or fifth spiritual awakenings. It's like peeling back the layers of an onion, really. And I help people through that and help them shift their paradigms and live into their soul's truth.
Yeah, you do. And it's amazing to watch you work with your clients and find those deeper layers and watch their celebrations when they overcome them. My name is Layne Mills, and I am a personal spiritual empowerment mentor. I'm trying to encapsulate this feeling that I have when I work with clients. What started as just using my divination skills and giving readings, I found that what I really light up is when we dig deeper, just like you're saying. And for the people that are waking up and they're kind of going through these shades of, like, they call them the dark nights of the soul, and there's not just one, there's many, and things pop up and they're triggered, and to work through those and just using me as that channel, as that conduit, and as a support team for helping them overcome it and living that life that they desire, that has ease in it and grace.
I think I've had a really hard time finding words that can perfectly encapsulate what I do, what we do, right? Because it's not just spiritual, right? It's not just a spiritual path, because we are multifaceted beings, and I mean, the work we do bleeds over into marriages, into parenting, and our relationships with our children and other family members. I've seen clients turn their careers around and move into jobs that absolutely light them up, and they were completely miserable before. I've watched clients leave toxic relationships that they'd just been suffering through for years, just kind of tolerating it the whole time, and have that courage to step out of it and then eventually find love and find healthy relationships again. So it's not just spiritual, it's life.
It is. I think it's just we kind of gravitate towards that because for so long people were taking care of their mental health and their physical health, and that was it. And there was nothing outside of, and even mental health is kind of a recent thing. We weren't really open to acknowledging it, but now there's this trifecta where we're acknowledging the spirit and how interconnected it all is. And like you're saying, we will go in and we can work with somebody on some spiritual aspect, and it affects their job. And that's a very physical thing, and how they physically feel in their relationships. And it all ties together. And I think this is the new where we're evolving into is combining it all and taking care of the whole person, not just these different symptoms. Even we're getting past the symptoms into the root causes, which is something I know that's really lighting you up right now.
Absolutely. To kind of carry on from what you were saying, right? Science is starting to find that, a lot of these different physical diseases are related to both mental and even spiritual conditions. Like the effect of stress on the body can do so much damage, and you can try to treat it as a mental health issue, right? Or even physical health and working out and eating right. All of those things will help. But if you address it from the top of the pyramid, that spiritual aspect, it has that trickle down effect, where you're helping realign both the physical, so making those healthier choices, and the mental, where you're thinking positive things. And, it's not that forced toxic positivity, right? Where we can't acknowledge that things suck. No, it's this like newfound realistic, like, you know, things aren't that bad. I can get through this, and, you know, finding a way to be your own cheerleader. And when you work from the spiritual domain, what I found, especially personally, is it's all dimensions of your health that really start to improve. Like I suffered for chronic migraines for years. And over the years, I started to realize that it was toxic levels of stress that were triggering migraines, right? Yeah. And I mean, like when you have somebody telling you, do as I say, not as I do, and then no, don't do as I say, how dare you do that? You know, and just completely demeaning and degrading you. You don't really know what else to do. And I mean, this is the Army. This isn't the civilian world where you can just turn in your resignation and quit. You know, you can't just tell them to go F off and walk away. Just kind of have to deal with it. And things like that were just like debilitating. And I realized, you know, working in the spiritual domain, that a lot of that was a lot of energy on the mental plane for me, and the emotional plane was just being held in and compressed and just pushed deep down instead of allowing it to free flow. And that inner energetic tension was what was causing the migraines. And since I started, you know, one, I got out of the military, but two, like since I started to change my approach to those stressors, you know, I find that my migraines are very rare. And when they do start to happen, you know, I know how to manage it because I know it causes it.
Yeah, it clues you in like, okay, something's not congruent here. I know that for me, like I get stress causes like eye twitch and like crazy muscle tension. And then when you're able to dig deeper into those soul wounds, it validates part of your experience. For one, you finally feel seen and heard, like, okay, this is a why, but it's also then empowering, because with that awareness, it's really hard to tell somebody, you know, in the spiritual community, we choose our reality, we create our reality. And some people have had really shitty realities. And to tell them you chose that is a very hard pill to swallow. So when you dig back into those soul wounds, it gives them that aha moment that they can empower themselves. Do you want to elaborate on that? I know that you've...
So there is a difference between being a victim and victimhood, right? And yes, energetically, we will attract certain situations because it's prompting us to bring our attention to those soul wounds, right? I'm not ever going to look at a trauma survivor and tell them, you know, oh, well, you did this. This was your choice, you know, because we don't really. No. I mean, energetically, it's a like attracts like situation. But I mean, it's not like you actually chose to be traumatized. You know, you chose to be the victim. You didn't have a choice there. But what we do have a choice is whether we choose to stay a victim, right? And so what happens is we have these wounds that we carry forward from lifetime to lifetime. And I don't know if you've ever like had a bad habit, like you know, you decide that you're going to eat ice cream for breakfast one day, right? And well, I already had ice cream for breakfast, so why not? I'm going to have a bunch of junk food for lunch, you know, and then I get off of work and I'm like, well, I've already had a bunch of junk food, so there's no point in working out, you know, the day's already a wash. And then the next day I'm like, well, I didn't work out yesterday, so why bother, you know? And that type of habitual like delaying, right, tends to pile up, and it causes what we like to talk about is karmic patterns, negative karmic patterns, right? So this one wound, right, then causes you to have to deal with it and cope with it in certain ways. And it's only negative if it's incongruent for you, right? Because positive and negative is irrelevant. It's not a bad thing. It's bad for you.
Yes.
Like I was just saying the other day, it's not about a way, it's about your way. And each one of us has the black and white scale. There's a shade of gray that is uniquely ours that we have to find somewhere in that middle ground. And people with that energy center of wisdom, you know, the really logical people, they get really stuck in the black or the white, and they don't see that there's shades of gray somewhere in between, and that everybody's shade of gray is different, right? Yeah. And then that's where you see these victimhood and victimization cycles where, you know, it's like, no, it has to be my way, or this isn't fair, or how dare you do this? And they get stuck in this injustice trap, right? Where nothing's fair and there is no justice. And what happens is then they start to attract these injustice situations, right? Where they're never going to win, right?
But because then they get to react. Yeah, then they get to react to it. Yeah. I like to tell people that it's just far more nuanced than right or wrong, because everybody from their perspective has made the best choice that they saw available to them in that moment. And even they can acknowledge sometimes that that wasn't my best, but at that moment, it was the best choice that you could make. And so it's really reassuring to know that we always are doing our best. And it's good to remember that when somebody else does something you think, oh, that's a terrible decision, you know, but to reserve that judgment and to say, well, what were their cards? What were they dealt with? And piled on that is past experience, and then piled on that is past life experience. And then we also have all these collective ancestral traumas that we're all working through, and they're all bubbling up to the surface. I know so many people are talking about it, and it's there's a lot of world events that are like triggering this, and it sets our body, like you feel it in your nerves. It's like a pain when these world events hit, and then you feel it, and maybe you're not even sure why. It's just a collective thing. It's coming out because we store it in our bodies, the emotions and these events, and that's why they come back to the surface, and we have to work through them all over again. Even if it was past lives, ancestor, we're holding on to that energy of it. An event happens that triggers it's a catalyst, and now here we are feeling it all over again, like the whole mind is replaying it.
Well, it's important to note that memories are state-based, right? So when you're happy, you are more inclined to remember happier memories. When you're upset or feeling helpless or, you know, despair, you're more inclined to remember other memories that have that state associated to it. I realized about a year ago that my memories are essentially, it's not necessarily a state-based, it's vibrational-based, right? It's a frequency-based system in which we store our memory systems, right? So like as you're working through your spiritual path and you get higher and higher up, those memories on those lower vibrations are harder and harder to access and reach. It's also why when you're just on your starting on your path way down here in a frequency, right? You're not able to access those past life memories and those higher self, those dreams, the astrals, any of that stuff that's stored up here, right? It's harder and harder for you to reach, and you have to bring yourself up to a degree in order to even like know that that spectrum exists, right? So it's, I was going somewhere with that, but yeah. So I mean, memories and energy, it's all in frequency form, right? So yes, as the world is crumbling and you're having these like holy shit moments. And what do I do? And how can I help? And like, can I even help? You know, will it make a difference? And so you're accessing all of those other memories, those past life, those ancestral ones, all of that stuff. You're accessing all of the same memories that are on that same frequency. And that's really what causes that overwhelm. But it's important to remember and observe those things, because there's always an opportunity in that to make a new choice.
Yeah.
Always.
Yep. And it's not like, emotions are so big, and they can seem really overwhelming when they happen in that moment. And it's important to remember, like, we're not our emotions, but they are a part of this energetic body that we have. And so when we get an emotion, it's something that's packed with information. Actually, it's a moment to pause and reflect, to question how aligned we are, in which direction we're going, or maybe there's something off. If you're having a sad moment, maybe you're just hungry. Like, it really could be you just need a break and you're hungry, or you were triggered by something else that's deeper, and it's an opportunity to ask why. So it's important to just, like you said, observe it and kind of detach from it, so that you can get the information that's packed in that emotion, without trying to say, oh, I shouldn't be sad, so I'm going to shove it away and force myself, toxic positivity, force myself to be happy and just shove it away. I can't think negative thoughts. And it's not, like you said, there's not right or wrong, positive and negative. It's a spectrum. And I feel like our language is lacking in that positive and negative, because people, I'm only going to think positive thoughts.
I don't think it's necessarily lacking the words. It's that we need, as a society, to redefine the words.
Yeah.
Over years and years, we've associated certain things to these words that just no longer serve us in the paradigms that we're moving into. But I mean, to kind of go along with what you're saying, one of the things that I always advise my clients is our emotions are an inner compass to our own soul's alignment, right? So if I'm feeling angry or resentful, I automatically know I need to look at my boundaries and I need to look at my expectations. Where is it that there's an unequal energetic exchange happening that's causing this anger or resentment? And if, you're feeling guilt or shame or, regret, what is it that inner truth, that soul aligned truth is trying to tell you? Our emotions don't lie. There's a narrative somewhere in there, whether it's soul level or it's, in our cognitive processes. I'm going to use that word to kind of distinguish the difference, but there's something there that's saying, I don't like this, and whenever you see us talking and we're excited, we're happy, we're leaning in, there's like a glow, right? We are lit up, that's joy, that's happiness, that's saying, yes, your soul is saying, yes, I want this. I want more of this. Give me that, right? And so if you just, acknowledge your emotions and treat them as a compass, I think it'll really help in being able to take an outsider's perspective and look at those emotions and well, that's an interesting thing. Why am I angry about that?
Yeah, and not judge it, like we say, should is the bad word, I shouldn't be angry, or I shouldn't, no, just observe it without judging yourself. Don't beat yourself up about the fact that you're having a feeling. Just feel the feeling and then ask the questions and move through it. You're not broken for feeling the way you feel. Yeah.
And what's funny is sometimes if you explore things, like I I was reflecting earlier. For the longest time, I didn't know what anxiety was. Like, I've heard people talk about it, but I didn't have an inner correlation to it. And like, I was having panic attacks a long time, and I had no idea what it was. I just knew inside of me, I needed to escape. I felt like I needed to leave the room. I didn't know why. I didn't know what was going on. I just needed to get up. And what's funny is if you've ever smoked or tried drugs before, an addictive one, right? This is a very similar feeling to fiending. So fiending for a substance. So I've been on a quit smoking journey. And one of the things that I had to notice was, is it a panic attack or is it a craving? Because those intense cravings can feel very similar to that panic attack feeling that I was getting. But the point I'm making is to, be curious and explore what emotion word feels right. Because anxiety can be nervous, worried, or it can be excited, happy, eager,
Yeah.
There's two different sides of that, right? And they're very, very similar, like physiological responses. And if your brain's narrative is saying bad things, bad things, bad things, bad things, right? But really, there's something good that's about to happen. Like, you're waiting to hear back about this job. You're eager, excited because you feel really confident about how you did on this interview, but your brain's used to going bad things, bad things, bad things. And it's used to, the anxiety where it's nervous, worry, doomsday, right? It's not going to recognize. It's up to you to consciously tell it, hey, I'm not worried about it. I'm not freaking out. I'm excited. I'm eager. I'm looking forward to this. Right. So a lot of these different emotions can have very similar physiological responses. And it's important to, not impulsively name it. But to instead be curious and explore it and be like, well, what does this feel like if I had to give it a name? And if you can't give it a name, give it a color, give it a shape.
I love that. I love that type of healing where you use the colors and textures and temperature to identify, where and how it's located. And I found it interesting when you were talking, it reminded me, so the self-talk, what's difficult with the self-talk is not knowing everything message we hear. It sounds like our own voice. Because that's what we hear. We hear our own voice in our head. So it's hard to distinguish, is that the ego talking, or is that our higher self talking, or is that some kind of download? Because it's all the same voice. But usually that negative self-talk, that revolving door of self-talk, is usually ego, and it's trying to do the job that it's always done. Keep you safe. Don't do anything new, because I don't know. I'm so scared. And when you do take like the new job, or you're taking that step and and you're convicted that it's aligned, getting that ego, you, like you said, consciously, no, we're going to get you on board. We're okay. We're going to try something new. And yes, these are my emotions, and you can list them out. And then you can say, well, what's true about these feelings, and look at them really objectively and say, okay, so I'm nervous. I'm scared. This is new. But I'm excited. There's so much potential, and just really work and shape it's just so juicy. And I love the complexity of navigating this human life, because it's not just, like you said, it's not just right or wrong. It's all the things in one. And there's just so many moments where that bittersweet, savory, to work with how you're feeling and moving through it, and then connecting with each other through it.
Yeah. So I was laughing because somebody had once told me, whenever you hear that negative Nancy voice in the back of your head, and no offense to any of you Nancy's, that's my mom's name too. But when you hear that negative voice in the back of your head, add add a silly character to it, like Charlie Brown's mom, right? The wop, 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 you know, or give it Mickey Mouse's voice, right? And just make it sound so utterly ridiculous that you just can't take it seriously.
I like that.
Make a practice of that. And it was just that was like, I'm laughing because that's what I heard in my head. I think it was one of my clients that had said something about that. And I was like, I like that.
Yeah, I definitely could go with the Peanuts parents and teachers. Yeah.
Yeah. And one of the strategies we use in NLP is a strategy blowout, and like you just stretch that voice beyond its limits, and so you assign all these like silly things to it. But it's one of my favorite interventions to run, just because it's so silly, you know. I think as humans, especially in today's age, we are learning to not be so freaking serious.
Oh,
like,
yes.
I've had a soapbox lately about the question, oh, what do you do for a living? I'm like, I myself, I explore for a living. I'm curious for a living. The idea that we are born to grow up and then go work, right? And that gives us purpose is absolutely insane. Like, our purpose here is to explore, to play, be curious, to learn more about ourselves in ways that we couldn't in other locations, right? So
yeah, that's
lighten up.
I know, and that's important for me. I get really intent and very serious, and I have to remember to just stop and laugh. Sometimes just at the sheer absurdity of everything, you know, and the whole interconnectedness of it all. Like, I love to just blow my own mind and think so huge, big thoughts, but then you have to laugh. Like, but then we're still have to deal with, you know, I've got a small child banging on the door right now because he thinks he needs in, and just being able to laugh at that is really important. I think with the whole, you know, the triggering of events with the pandemic, people started to realize, like, what am I doing with my time? Like, we went from being super packed and busy. I know I was, and I had something every hour on the hour, packed activities for me and the kids, and then stripped to nothing. And it was like, whoa. And time just feels so different. It's still like kind of this like punching underwater feeling, like just moving through the motions, trying to kind of collect back to where we are. But I love this feeling, exploring it, you know, and exploring it with other people. And that's probably why I fell into this work, where I love connecting with clients and people and actually talking about the nitty gritty of life, and then helping to shape it and form something really beautiful.
I think one of the biggest things that the pandemic brought on is it forced us to sit down, relax. You have nowhere to go. You have nowhere to be. Just sit. One of the things that I recognized within myself is I was holding so much tension in my body, like that mom that's like watching the kid while trying to have conversations, right? Watching the kid, and the kid's about to do something. You just know your mom senses are tingling. You know they're about to do something that you're going to have to jump up at any moment, right? And you're holding that tension in your body. And I realized one day when my neck was just so tight, and I'm like trying to move it, and I couldn't even turn my neck. I'm like, what is going on? And I realized I was holding my body so tight and rigid, like just ready to jump up at any moment's notice. So one of the things that the pandemic, I had surgery during that time too. So it really forced me to just sit down.
Yeah.
I literally had to sit down, right? Universe is like, oh no, you're going to get it. Because I was one of those, you know, if you'd have known me when I was in the Army, I was so serious. Oh man, I was very black and white. These are the rules. You will listen to me, you know?
Yep. I know, I
And
get it. Okay. Thank you. So yeah, I had to go deal with my small ones emotions. And it's just funny to me that we're talking about how our own emotions can just get so big and overwhelming. And then you see this small person who's just completely wrapped up in their emotions and navigating it. And there's no logic attached to it. It's just there's so much to take away from kids. They're so in their now moment, and this is how I feel now, and this must define everything about what's going on right now. And then one distraction later, it's like flipped completely, and we're happy again, and everything's good.
right.
Yeah, it's a good message for us to take away too, that these things do change and shift and evolve. And when we put our awareness on it, we can actually help that flow and direct it. It's really powerful stuff.
All right, so I think that about does it for today. So talked about emotions being our inner compass and how to navigate those, especially in today's age where there's one global crisis after another.
Yeah.
So if you have any questions or have anything that you'd like us to talk about, feel free to drop it in the comments and make sure that you like and subscribe. All right.
All right.
Thank you
Thank
for
you.
joining. Bye.